Every NBA career-ending injury explained. Magic Johnson, November 7, 1991. The world stopped when he walked into that press conference. HIV positive. In 1991, that wasn't just a diagnosis. It was a death sentence in most people's minds. Magic retired immediately at 32, right in his prime. He was averaging 19 points and 12 assists just months before. The Lakers had won 5 championships with him running the show, but none of that mattered now. The stigma was brutal. Players were scared to guard him when he tried comebacks. Karl Malone publicly complained about playing against him. Magic attempted returns in 1992 for the Olympics and briefly in 1996, but the fear and ignorance were too much. What would have been 5 more elite years got cut short by a virus that we now know is manageable with proper treatment. His career didn't end with a torn ACL or broken bone. It ended with a microscopic enemy that basketball couldn't fight. Magic's retirement changed everything. The league implemented HIV testing and education programs. Players learned to separate fear from facts. But Magic's prime, that was gone forever. Larry Bird's back started betraying him in the mid-'80s, but he played through pain that would have ended most careers. By 1988, bone spurs were grinding against his spine every time he moved. He'd lie flat on the floor during timeouts just to get relief. The 1992 season was torture. He missed 37 games, and when he did play, he was a shell of the guy who used to talk trash and back it up. Surgery after surgery couldn't fix what 13 years of basketball had broken. Bird retired after that season, unable to bend over to tie his shoes without agony. He was only 35, but his spine was 60. The man who once scored 60 points against the Hawks couldn't even practice without pain shooting down his legs. Bird's back robbed us of seeing him battle Jordan and Hakeem deeper into the 90s. Instead of more classic duels, we got a legend walking away because his body couldn't cash the checks his mind was writing. Bill Walton. Walton's feet were time bombs wrapped in basketball shoes. At 6'11", his frame put enormous strain on his feet, and the repeated pounding broke them down piece by piece. Stress fractures became his constant companion. The first major injury hit in 1978, right after he led Portland to the championship. He missed almost the entire next season. Then came the 1979-80 season. More foot problems, surgery after surgery, but the bones wouldn't heal properly. Walton played just 14 games over 3 seasons. By 1982, he was essentially done as a dominant force. He had brief moments with Boston in 1986, winning 6th Man of the Year, but that was lightning in a bottle. His feet were held together with screws and hope. Walton should have been the center of the 80s alongside Kareem. Instead, he became a cautionary tale about how genetics and physics can destroy even the most talented players. At his peak, he was unstoppable. Passing, shooting, defense, rebounds, he did it all. But his feet couldn't handle the load his talent demanded. Penny Hardaway. Penny was magic in sneakers until his knees turned into his worst enemy. The first injury came in 1997 during the playoffs, a torn cartilage that seemed minor at first. But knee injuries are like cracks in a windshield. They spread. Surgery followed surgery. Each procedure took away a little more of his explosiveness. The lateral movement that made him special, gone. The first step that left defenders in the dust, history. By 2000, Penny was playing on one good leg and determination. He tried comeback after comeback, switching teams, adjusting his game, but the knees wouldn't cooperate. What made it worse was the timing. Penny was 25 when the injuries really took hold. He should have been entering his prime, competing with Kobe and Duncan for the throne. Instead, he was rehabbing and hoping for one more healthy season that never came. Penny's career became a highlight reel of what could have been. Those smooth drives, the no-look passes, the clutch shots, all ended because cartilage couldn't keep up with brilliance. Grant Hill's ankle injury in 2000 should have been routine. A simple fracture that headed wrong and turned into a nightmare. The bone didn't set properly, leading to infection and more surgeries. 7 operations over 4 years. 7. Each time doctors opened him up, they found new problems. Scar tissue, bone fragments, infection that wouldn't quit. Hill went from a surefire Hall of Famer to a medical experiment. He missed entire seasons, sitting on the bench in street clothes while his prime years evaporated. The worst part? Hill was just hitting his peak when it happened. At 27, he was averaging 26 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. He had the perfect combination of size, skill, and basketball IQ to dominate the early 2000s. Instead, he spent his prime in operating rooms and rehab facilities. When he finally returned in Phoenix, he was effective but careful. The fearless drives were gone, replaced by cautious jump shots. Hill's injury robbed the league of watching him battle Kobe, Duncan, and Garnett in their primes. Instead of classics, we got what-ifs. T-Mac's back started failing him right when he should have been unstoppable. Microfractures in his spine that no one could fix. Pain was constant, shooting down his legs every time he moved. By 2005, McGrady was averaging 26 points, but played through agony that would have hospitalized normal people. The back wouldn't let him explode to the rim anymore. Those spectacular dunks replaced by fadeaway jumpers, because going up hard meant coming down in pain. Surgery after surgery couldn't fix what years of carrying Orlando and Houston had broken. McGrady played until 2013, but he was done as an elite player by 2007. The guy who scored 13 points in 33 seconds against San Antonio was reduced to spot-up shooting and careful movements. His back stole his first step, his leaping ability, and his confidence. T-Mac should have been battling Kobe for scoring titles throughout the 2000s. Instead, he was managing pain and hoping for one more healthy playoff run that never came. Brandon Roy. Roy's knees had no cartilage left, none. Doctors said he was essentially playing bone on bone, which is as painful as it sounds. The degenerative condition meant every step was grinding away at what little cushioning remained. By 2010, Roy needed injections just to practice. The pain was so severe he couldn't sleep without medication. At 27, Roy was forced to retire because his knees couldn't handle another season. This was a guy who had averaged 22 points and 5 assists just 2 years earlier. Roy tried a comeback with Minnesota in 2012, but 5 games proved his knees hadn't magically healed. The smooth drives and clutch shots were still there mentally, but physically, his body couldn't cooperate. Roy's retirement hit Portland especially hard. He was supposed to be their franchise player for the next decade, leading them back to championship contention. Instead, they got 3 elite seasons and a bunch of what-ifs. Derrick Rose. Rose's knees betrayed him at the worst possible moment. Game 1 of the 2012 playoffs against Philadelphia. Rose planted his left foot to jump and his ACL just gave out. No contact, no hard foul, just a routine move that ended everything. He was 23 and coming off of an MVP season where he averaged 25 points and led Chicago to the best record in the league. The surgery was successful, but Rose was never the same player again. The explosive first step that made him unstoppable, gone. The fearless drives through traffic, replaced by hesitation and second guessing. He came back a year later, but then the other knee went. Meniscus tear. More surgery, more missed time. Rose played 9 more seasons after that first injury, but he was always playing scared. The athleticism that made him the youngest MVP ever was stolen by joints that couldn't handle the stress he put on them. Chicago never recovered from losing their franchise player in his prime. Rose should have been battling LeBron for Eastern Conference supremacy throughout the 2010s. Instead, he spent his prime years rehabbing and hoping his knees would hold up for one more season. They rarely did. Yao Ming. At 7'6", Yao's feet were carrying more weight than they were designed to handle. The stress fractures started early and never stopped. His left foot broke in 2005, requiring surgery and months of rehab. Just when he returned, the right foot went, then the left again. Each injury made the next one more likely. The bones couldn't heal properly with all that weight pressing down. By 2011, Yao had undergone multiple foot surgeries and missed entire seasons. The final straw came when doctors told him another injury could leave him with permanent walking problems. At just 30, Yao retired rather than risk never walking normally again. His feet, which should have been his foundation for dominance, became his downfall. Yao was averaging 19 points and 9 rebounds when healthy, but healthy became increasingly rare. The league lost a generational talent and a bridge to China because physics and genetics conspired against the gentle giant. Greg Oden. Oden's body was cursed from day one. Microfracture surgery before his rookie season was just the beginning. His right kneecap was held together with hope and surgical screws. The recovery took over a year, and when he returned, he wasn't the same player who dominated college. Then came the left knee. More surgeries, more rehab, more missed seasons. Oden played just 82 games in 4 NBA seasons. That's not even a full season spread across 4 years. At 7 feet with soft hands and defensive instincts, he should have been the next great center. Instead, he became the poster child for how injuries can destroy potential before it blooms. The cruel irony, Portland passed on Kevin Durant to draft Oden first overall. They thought they were getting the next Tim Duncan. They got a medical foul instead. Oden's knees stole not just his career, but Portland's entire future. Shaun Livingston. At just 21 years old, Livingston looked like the future of the Clippers. At 6'7" with a guard's handle and vision, he was the kind of prospect people dreamed about. Then in February 2007, it all collapsed. Driving on the fast break, Livingston planted awkwardly and his left knee bent in a way no human joint should. The diagnosis was brutal. Torn ACL, PCL, MCL, and meniscus, plus a dislocated kneecap and a fractured tibia. Doctors even feared he could lose the leg entirely due to blood vessel damage. The injury silenced the crowd, shocked his teammates, and became one of the most stomach-turning events the league had ever seen. Many thought his career was over, and for nearly 2 years it looked that way. But somehow, he clawed his way back, reinventing his game and becoming a vital piece of the Warriors dynasty. His comeback was inspiring, but the replay of that night remains nearly unwatchable. The fact that he not only saved his leg but returned to play championship basketball is nothing short of miraculous. Paul George. During the Team USA scrimmage in 2014, Paul George went up to contest a layup and came down in a way no one in the gym could ever forget. His right leg snapped violently against the base of the stanchion, the bone piercing through his skin for everyone to see. Players turned away, some dropped to the floor in disbelief, and the game was immediately stopped. George was rushed into surgery that same night, and the diagnosis meant he would miss nearly the entire following season. This visual was so graphic that the video was barely shown on TV, and for many fans, it remains one of the hardest replays to stomach. But George's story didn't end there. He fought through rehab, returned, and eventually reclaimed his place among the league's elite two-way players. Even now, though, the image of that leg break is what people remember first. It's a testament to his mental toughness that he came back at all, let alone at an all-star level. Gordon Hayward. Opening night of the 2017 season was supposed to launch a new era for the Boston Celtics, but within minutes, it turned into one of the most gruesome moments in NBA history. Gordon Hayward went up for an alley-oop, collided midair, and came down with his foot twisted in a way no one could bear to watch. His ankle was dislocated, his tibia fractured, and the shocked expressions on the players said everything. Teammates covered their faces. The crowd fell silent, and the season Boston had dreamed about ended almost instantly. For Hayward, it was the beginning of a long and painful recovery. While he eventually fought his way back, the road was brutal, filled with setbacks and doubt about whether he could ever regain his all-star form. The memory of that night remains seared into the minds of fans because it wasn't just an injury. It was hope collapsing in real time. Kobe Bryant. In April 2013, the Lakers were clinging to playoff hopes, and Kobe Bryant was carrying the team on his back. Then against Golden State came the play fans will never forget. Kobe drove hard, planted, and instantly crumpled to the ground. He knew immediately his Achilles was turned. Trainers rushed over as the crowd held his breath, but Kobe wasn't finished. With the tendon completely ruptured, he limped to the free throw line and calmly sank both shots before walking off on his own. The moment became the ultimate symbol of his defiance and unbreakable willpower. Recovery was long, and though he returned, he was never quite the same player. Fans still debate whether the heavy workload leading up to that night was the cause, but the moment itself became iconic. It was the end of an era, but also the beginning of a myth. Kobe refusing to bow down even to one of the cruelest injuries in sports. That image of him shooting free throws on a torn Achilles defined everything about his mentality. Kevin Durant. Game 5 of the 2019 Finals was supposed to be Kevin Durant's triumphant return. The Warriors were trailing Toronto, and Durant pushed himself to come back despite warnings that his calf wasn't fully healed. For 12 minutes, he looked unstoppable, drilling jumpers and silencing the crowd. Then it happened. As he drove to his right, his Achilles suddenly popped. Durant grabbed the back of his leg, limped forward, and collapsed as the entire arena gasped. The slow-motion replay showed the tendon visibly snap in his calf, one of the most infamous visuals in NBA history. Golden State's dynasty collapsed with him. and Toronto went on to win the battle. The decision to let Durant play has been debated ever since, with many believing the Warriors risked his long-term health for one more shot at glory. Durant eventually recovered and proved he could still play at an elite level, but that moment changed the trajectory of multiple franchises. Danny Manning. Manning's knee exploded in January 1992, and his career died with it. The ACL tear was catastrophic, requiring reconstructive surgery that lasted over 4 hours. This was 1992, when ACL repairs were still experimental, and recovery was measured in years, not months. Manning missed the rest of that season and most of the next. When he returned, the explosiveness was gone. The guy who averaged 24 points and 10 rebounds in college became a careful jump shooter afraid of contact. Manning played until 2003, but he was never the same dominant force. His knee injury came at the worst possible time, right when he was establishing himself as a premier power forward. Instead of a decade of dominance, Manning got a decade of what if he stayed healthy. Drazen Petrovic. This wasn't an injury at all, it was worse. June 7, 1993. Petrovic was riding as a passenger in a car through Germany when they hit rain and crashed into a truck. He died instantly at 28 years old. The cruel part? Petrovic was just hitting his stride. He'd averaged 22 points the season before, shooting 45% from three. The man could flat out score from anywhere on the court. His death robbed basketball of watching him evolve into one of the greatest shooters ever. Petrovic was already better than most NBA guards despite English being his second language and the NBA being foreign territory. His passing changed how European players were viewed in the league. Before Drazen, they were seen as soft. After his death, they were seen as skilled players who deserved respect. The what-ifs surrounding Petrovic are endless and heartbreaking. Len Bias. 2 days. That's all it took to destroy what would have been a legendary career. June 17, 1986. The Celtics had just drafted Bias second overall, expecting him to eventually replace Larry Bird. Instead, he died of a cocaine overdose 2 days later in his college dorm room. Bias was 6'8" with unlimited range and the athleticism to play any position. He averaged 23 points and 7 rebounds at Maryland, while shooting from NBA three-point range before there was an NBA three-point line. His death sent shockwaves through the basketball and American culture. The Celtics dynasty died with him. They never recovered from losing their future cornerstone. Bias's death led to tougher drug laws and mandatory testing throughout sports, but it couldn't bring back a talent that might have changed basketball history. Instead of Bird passing the torch to Bias, the Celtics watched their dynasty crumble and never rise again. Maurice Stokes. Stokes suffered a brain injury that ended more than just his basketball career. It ended his mobility forever. March 12, 1958. During the final game of the regular season, Stokes hit his head on the court after being knocked down. He seemed fine and even played in the playoffs 3 days later, but on a team flight home, he went into convulsions and slipped into a coma. Brain damage from the fall left him paralyzed and unable to speak clearly for the rest of his life. He was just 24 and averaging 17 points, 17 rebounds, and 5 assists. Stokes was the prototype for the modern versatile big man, but one fall changed everything. His teammate Jack Twyman became his legal guardian and helped care for him until Stokes died in 1970. The NBA created the Maurice Stokes Award to honor players who make humanitarian contributions. Basketball lost a revolutionary player, but gained a reminder of how fragile careers and lives can be. Ralph Sampson. At 7'4", Sampson's back couldn't handle the constant bending and twisting that basketball demanded. The injury started in his third season and never stopped. Disc problems, muscle spasms, and chronic pain turned every game into a battle. Sampson tried to play through it because the Rockets were contenders with him and Hakeem as the Twin Towers, but by 1989 his back was done. Surgery couldn't fix what genetics had doomed. Sampson retired at 31, his prime years stolen by vertebrae that couldn't support his frame. He should have been the perfect center for the late 80s and early 90s. Instead, he became another cautionary tale about how being too tall can be a curse in basketball. The Twin Towers should have dominated for a decade. Instead, they got a few years before Sampson's back gave out. Andrew Bynum. Bynum's knees gave out just when he figured out how to dominate. The 2012 trade to Philadelphia was supposed to be his breakthrough moment. Instead, it became his farewell tour. Bone bruises, torn cartilage, and degenerative changes meant his knees were essentially crumbling inside his legs. At just 25, Bynum was forced to retire because doctors told him continuous play could leave him unable to walk properly. The cruel irony? He finally put together back-to-back healthy seasons with the Lakers, averaging 18 points and 12 rebounds, but his knees had reached their breaking point.